Despite the death and injuries, Chmielowski set off through the woods, taking Samantha Ettridge with him, until apparently he decided to give himself up when he came to Cockley Hall. His knocks on the door were answered by the owner, Sir Samuel Roberts.
Very depressed, sad and remorseful, dejected. I think there was a certain amount of shock. I understand they'd said they'd had a head-on crash, so there was shock. And I've since discovered that the crash was about 3 miles away, so they must have walked through some very remote and isolated woodlands to get here. And anybody who arrives on foot must have walked a long way. And they looked sort of tired and dejected, quiet.
Chmielowski was taken to Swaffham police station to be questioned about the fatal accident before being driven away to London, his head covered in a blanket, where he'll be questioned closely about what happened since, allegedly posing as a minicab driver, he picked up Samantha on Christmas Eve and failed to take her home. Meanwhile, 10 miles away at Dereham police station, fresh clothes arrived for Samantha. She'd been kept here all day until she was driven off at high speed to London, having been persuaded by the police that she too should hide her head under a blanket. Desmond Hamill, ITN, Norfolk.
Thanks very much.
All day, Samantha's home in Cheshunt was besieged by well-wishers. This bouquet had the message, "We're glad you're safe." Across town, police told of the head-on car crash in Norfolk that led to Samantha's release.
We are greatly saddened by the news from Norfolk that as a result of a road accident this morning, a 5-month infant has died, and I would like to take this opportunity of expressing our condolences to the parents.
Samantha's parents offered their sympathy too, sadness overshadowing their delight. Their ordeal ended with a phone call from Samantha, including a few words from her alleged abductor.
Hello, it's Pete. I'd like to apologise for all the trouble I've caused you.
She just talked her way, or talked to him all the time. She said she'd never spoken so much in, 4 days. So I feel that Sammy sort of got a bit of, personal relationship with him going to talk to him, but she didn't say any more than that. She didn't say where they'd been, what they'd done.
Tonight, police arrived to take the Ettridges, complete with presents, to a secret rendezvous with Samantha, where they're now making up for a lost Christmas. Simon Cole, ITN, Cheshunt.
The families of Krista McAuliffe and of 3 of the other dead Challenger shuttle astronauts have agreed to at least $750,000 each in compensation. 3 other families are still seeking compensation through the courts. Challenger blew up seconds after its launch on January the 28th. At a special ceremony in Los Angeles today, President Reagan presented the pilots and designer of the round-the-world plane Voyager with presidential citizens' medals.
3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot.
Near last Tuesday, Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager have been out of sight resting from their 10-day ordeal. Today, in what will be the first of many public appearances, they met President Reagan, who presented the pair and designer Burt Rutan with citizens' medals for their achievement.
And 3 men, or new names I should say, will be added to the column headed "The Right Stuff."
The president revealed that despite pressing concerns of state, he'd found time to follow the progress of the round-the-world flight.
We laughed and shook our head, but in a way understood the local official in Thailand who refused to believe that some cockamamie story about a plane that was flying around the world on 1 tank of gas.
And as you'd expect from somebody with the right stuff, Dick Rutan was suitably modest.
This was done by individual citizens of this great land. And we did so because we had the freedom to pursue a dream.
Their dream achieved, Rutan and Yeager now face what they say is the hardest part, a grueling round of TV shows and personal appearances to try to raise money to pay the bills for their record-breaking flight. Ken Rees, ITN, Washington.
In South Africa, President Botha has authorized strict new measures to curb unrest in black classrooms. Senior education officials will be able to expel students, ban them from wearing political T-shirts, bar anyone from school premises, and prohibit the teaching of unauthorized courses. This report has been compiled under South African government restrictions.
This is the main target of the latest restrictions, people's education. These students in Port Elizabeth are boycotting the state's teaching syllabus, the classroom now a forum for political discussion and freedom songs. From today, gatherings like these will be illegal. students and teachers alike now liable to 2 years jail for participating in alternative education. Since 1984, the black school playgrounds of South Africa have become battlegrounds. Black students once again in the vanguard of opposition to the government. 3 years of school boycotts and empty classrooms. From Soweto to the Cape, the student slogan now, liberation before education. But in the rubble of 100 burnt-out township schools, the government sees the hand of the ANC.
We cannot allow children to be intimidated, to be prevented from attending school, from writing vitally important examinations, and from even being attacked physically and harmed.
It is scandalous, and it's either very stupid or it is a deliberate attempt by government to provoke more and more disorganized violence in this country.
And with 6 million black students due back at school next month, fears in the townships that the latest security legislation, instead of ending confrontations like this, will result in yet more violence. Peter Sharp, ITN in Johannesburg.
A maritime court in Iceland has heard that the captain of the British tanker Sinetta, which sank off Iceland on Boxing Day, radioed ashore to say he had a faulty radar before the vessel ran onto the rocks. All 12 crew were killed. The tanker had changed over from a 25-man to a 6-man lifeboat after transferring registration from Sweden to Gibraltar. In China, the government's new ban on unauthorized demonstrations hasn't stopped students taking to the streets. Despite official warnings, several thousand students defied the ban and marched through Peking. Student demands for democracy have spread to at least 9 Chinese cities in the past month. British Aerospace has announced orders worth £90 million for small civil aircraft. Therefore, 18 Jetstream 31s, commuter airliners built at Prestwick, and for 11 125 executive jets made at Broughton near Chester. British Aerospace is also more optimistic now about government funding for the new European Airbuses, the A330 and A340.
Simulated tests of the MD-11 convinced enough airlines that the plane had the economy and performance they needed. British Caledonian's decision early this month to buy the American plane to replace its aging DC-10s was the big breakthrough. BCAL placed an order for 9, worth £700 million. Scandinavian Air Services followed, ordering 12. Swiss Air reserved 6, and Japan's Mitsui ordered another 5. For McDonnell Douglas, the expensive project marked a switch in emphasis as military orders have slowed. It also poses a serious threat to the next generation of European Airbuses, the planned A340 in particular. The British government doubts whether potential sales justify putting £750 million behind British Aerospace's 20% stake in the project. But a new engine, partly developed by Rolls-Royce, may keep the big Airbus in with a chance.
We now have an airplane that is superior to the MD-11 and chipping away at the bottom end of what is now a very old airplane, the 747. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to persuade the government that we are doing the right thing and that the investment will be a wise one to take.
The Soviet Union is beginning to publicize its concern about drug taking. For the first time, Soviet television is showing the treatment of addicts and pictures of convicted drug pushers. The problem has been made worse by young conscripts serving in Afghanistan being exposed to hashish, opium and heroin. Walter Rogers, the Moscow correspondent of the American Broadcasting Company, reports.
When the Soviets go public with something like drug abuse, it suggests they have a serious problem. This drug raid, recently shown on Soviet television, had to shock many Russians who until recently believed drug abuse was a Western phenomenon, a view that still gets official support.
The drug scale in our country can't be compared with the countries in the West.
Soviet doctors get little training in treating drug abuse and only now are opening clinics like this, although many Soviet users stay away fearing they'll be turned into the police. Some doctors, like this man, are part of the problem. 20% of all the Soviet Union's illegal drugs come from fake prescriptions to illegal patients or doctors who peddle narcotics on the black market. It is Soviet youth which falls prey to drugs, as in the West. Soviet teachers have no idea how to deal with the problem, and Soviet law enforcement officials are reluctant to seek the assistance of their Western counterparts who have more experience combating illegal drugs. The Soviets are on the horns of a dilemma. They're bravely trying to discuss the drug problem more openly, but there's the lingering fear that publicity will only make the forbidden fruit more attractive to their young people. Walter Rogers, ABC News, Moscow.
Soccer in the Today League, Second Division, Portsmouth go back on top with a 3-0 win over Shrewsbury, and Birmingham and Millwall drew 1-1. And the main news again, Lord Stockton, the former Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, has died at the age of 92. A few moments ago, Mr. Kinnock said he'd lived a life of common sense and compassion. Dr. David Owen said he was the first major statesman to realize that white minority rule in South Africa could never last. That's the news from us tonight. Good night.
Good evening. Home Secretary Douglas Hurd has suggested a top-level meeting to try and defuse the confrontation between North Wales Chief Constable David Owen and the Forces Union, the Police Federation. He's asked the Chief Inspector of Constabulary, Sir Lawrence Byford, to meet with Home Office officials and the Federation's National Chairman, Leslie Curtis, to discuss grievances. Mr. Owen, who was unavailable for comment today, has been criticised by the Federation and the Home Secretary on a number of issues, including plans to close 41 local police stations in North Wales. Journalists and printers who claim they've been locked out in a dispute with management at the South Wales Argus newspaper suffered a setback today. The NGA and the NUJ asked for support from the distribution union SOGAT to try and force an end to the 3-week-old dispute. But the two unions said that their appeals had been rejected by SOGAT, who had decided to continue working with management to produce the newspaper. An American photographer who's building a life-size replica of a Welsh castle came back to Wales today looking for things to put in it. When Michael Friedman visited Castell Coch near Cardiff 15 years ago, he fell in love with it. So he decided to build a replica at his home near Nashville, Tennessee. And this is the result. He's already spent $250,000, but he still hasn't finished building or furnishing it. Now the weather. After a wet night, drier, brighter conditions will be spreading eastwards later in the morning, but then some blustery showers developing. Mild overnight, temperatures tomorrow 8 degrees Celsius, that's 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds fresh or strong tomorrow, reaching gale force at times in certain places. And there are warnings of southwesterly severe gales force 9 in operation over both the Irish Sea and Lundy. That's the weather outlook for Wales.
Haskin Sale. It's the big one, wherever you live. This is the sale you've all been waiting for. Everywhere you look, prices are down. Beds and bedroom furniture, down. Dining and repro furniture, down. Carpets and rugs, down. Lounge suites and upholstery, down. Haskin Sale. It's the big one, wherever you live.
Meet the Doubting Thomases. When we first told them about less than half-price electricity, they couldn't believe their eyes.
Do me a favor.
And when we pointed out that over a year, the typical cost of heating and hot water in a house like theirs with basic insulation was about 80p a day,
You're pulling my leg.
they still had their doubts.
I can't see it myself.
But when we gave them all the facts about storage heating, even Mr. T was moved to say,
I don't believe it.
don't be a doubting Thomas. Ring 01200 0200 for the facts.
Hello?
Hello.
Catherine?
Christian.
Catherine, where are you?
Well, what are you up to?
Oh, just having a quiet drink.
Quietish. That wouldn't be ice, would it?
C'est possible.
And a little Cointreau?
You're getting warm?
What, a lot of Cointreau?
Just enough to fire the memory. You sound so close.
You too. Listen, Christian, I have to go. I'll give you another ring in a minute. Il est là. Merci, monsieur.
I bet he drinks Carling Black Label. Nah, he doesn't wash his underpants.
Your best bet for a fuller flavour.
Cold Finger, a taste of tonight from Cadbury's.
Time for changing, rearranging, time to build upon your dreams.
Great Mills New Year sale. Ceramic wall tiles, just £2.49 for a pack of 18. Crown textured vinyls, £2.99 per roll. Black & Decker hammer drill, now only £16.95. Matte or silk emulsion, 5 litres, £3.99. Chip glass loft insulation at £2.35. Beautiful things can happen when you get the Great Mills sale on your mind.
Time to dream and time to scheme. You've got Great Mills on your mind.
When you're feeling off colour, take Andrews.
Now, a film with a bit of everything, including mummies, Tutankhamun's tomb, earthquakes, and a deadly fungus. Its name, Time Walker.